everybody, and the CBS All Access just dropped the first official trailer for the Stand 2020 miniseries, and right off the bat I gotta say it's a lot better than the teaser trailer. It tells us a lot more what the show is going to be about, and gives us more in-depth look at the gives us more of an in-depth look at the characters in the story. Although I would, if I were in charge of editing the trailer and distributing it, I would have leaned more into the virus outbreak, because that's topical and it would get people talking about the show and it would be free press. But I understand why they're kind of going away from that and not focusing on it too much, because it's still a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. But before we get into the trailer breakdown, I have a couple things to say. I think it's just one thing, actually. My podcast, Casuals Only, will be looking at horror movies the entire month of October. If you're interested in that, link is in the description below. Next Monday, we'll be looking at The Invisible Man, so check that out if you're interested. Alright, so the song that is playing in the trailer is called Three Little Birds, and performed by Bob Marley and the Wailers. My first thought is that they chose this song to play in the trailer because the music video features wolves and crows, but that might not necessarily be the case. Wolves and crows obviously are animals that are associated with Randall Flagg, as well as weasels. I don't know what that was. Crows, wolves, and weasels are the animals most associated with Randall Flagg, the Dark Man. But also I think maybe they chose this song because it's an upbeat song, and a lot of the imagery in this trailer is not upbeat. So maybe they wanted to make that contrast. It worked either way. It works well with the trailer. And so the next scene in the trailer is we saw this in the teaser. Stu going through sort of this it looks like some kind of testing facility, and it looks like this is definitely a dream now. Yeah, so in this next shot we see Nick reading a newspaper, and so he's deaf and mute, so he doesn't know at first why everyone's dying from this virus because he can't talk. And so I think this next shot he's reading a newspaper, and so it's probably him figuring out why everyone's gone, because at first he just doesn't know why the town's just empty, because yeah, he's immune to it and he doesn't know why everyone's gone. And so my guess is this is the scene where he finds out what has happened to everybody, because he's reading a newspaper.
I'm scared.
Me too.
Where will we go?
Next shot we see Larry Underwood and Rita Blakemore looking out on the Manhattan skyline, which is burning. And mild spoiler warning, I'll put some indication on the screen to indicate when the spoiler will be over. But if you want to go in relatively blind, I would say skip ahead a couple of seconds, and there'll be something on screen to indicate that. But yeah, right now, spoiler warning. Rita Blakemore is a wealthy middle-aged woman who has a hard time adjusting to the post-apocalyptic lifestyle. Eventually, I would say about halfway through the first third of the novel, she commits suicide via overdose. And so, that kind of pushes Larry's story forward. So yeah, that's the end of the spoilers. The next thing we see...
Welcome to the Boulder Free Zone! Stu Redmond. Which one of you is Larry Underwood?
How do you know who I am?
How do you think?
The Boulder Free Zone. So Stu calls it the Boulder Free Zone outright. And so it's where Mother Abigail's Boulder Free Zone. This is what Mother Abigail's settlement calls themselves. And this is our first look at behind Larry Underwood is our first look at Lucy Swan and Larry and Lucy's adopted son.
How do you know who I am?
Before meeting Larry, his name's Joe, the child behind Larry. Before meeting Larry, Joe is a feral child that runs around in his underwear with a butcher knife. Honestly, it's incredible. You can't make this stuff up. But eventually Larry is able to make a connection with the child because of their mutual love of music. And so throughout the story, Joe becomes more and more civilized. I think you eventually find out that his real name is Leo. And so Stu says, this is interesting, he says, "Which one of you is Larry Underwood?" To which Larry responds, how do you know who I am?" And so this could mean one of two things. In the book, Larry's group follows signs and markings left by Stu, Fran, and Harold's group. Now, this could very easily be changed, having Stu follow Larry's signs. It's just a small change. And so it could be Stu meets Larry for the first time and is, "Oh, I followed your signs along the country all the way to Colorado." Or, this is the second reason, Larry is a semi-popular musician and Stu could simply remember him from the before times. This is supported by Stu's line, "How do you think?" But what the trailer seems to indicate, and I think this is wrong, I think this is just kind of magic of editing. They're trying to trick you. Wake up, sheeple, the trailers are trying to trick you. But the trailer seems to indicate that Mother Abigail told Stu about Larry, but I don't think this is the case because in the book, everyone knows about Mother Abigail through their dreams, but she doesn't know about them until they arrive in Boulder. Also, I have the book right here. I don't know. Maybe I'll cut that part out. I'll put it right there. No, I'll put it over here. Yeah, right there. Okay.
Mother Abigail?
All I know is that we dreamed of her and she was real.
She brought us all together to keep us safe in these uncertain times.
In the next shot, we see one of Nick's cornfield dreams in which he meets Mother Abigail. This is likely before she moves to Boulder because in the novel, Nick's group is the first to meet up with Mother Abigail while she's still living in a homestead in Nevada. But then she quickly realizes that her home in Nevada is not quite big enough for everybody that's coming, so Nick and his group and Mother Abigail go to Boulder, Colorado. This next shot is likely one of the first Boulder Town Hall meetings, in which Stu is leading because he gets elected as sort of a political leader of the Boulder Free Zone, while Mother Abigail serves as more of a spiritual leader.
I am in the way of knowing things. I know you feel him.
Hear from Mother Abigail say, "I'm in the way of knowing things." Now, in the book, she outright says that she has the Shining. Yes, that's the same Shining from The Shining and Dr. Sleep. I've said this before a couple times on the podcast and maybe on the YouTube channel, but a lot of Stephen King's books are connected. And many theorize that other popular characters from King's work also have the Shining, and I'm working on a video about that right now. It's a long video, so it's probably gonna take a while for it to come out. But let's move on.
Calls himself the Dark Man. Mostly I just see his wolf.
Next thing is interesting because Stu says that mostly I only see his wolf, referring to the Dark Man's dreams because most of the survivors of the virus have dreams about Mother Abigail as well as Randall Flagg, the Dark Man. And so he says, I mostly see his wolf. This is interesting because in the novel, Randall Flagg can only turn into a crow, but apparently he also in the book has the ability to control wolves and weasels as well. But it looks like here he will be able to take the form of a wolf as well, so that's interesting.
Mother Abigail told us that there are two sides to the world. There's the good, and then there's a deep well of darkness.
Now the trailer for the second half kind of shifts focus to Randall Flagg and his group in Las Vegas. First we see him confronting Harold in a dream. To most of the residents of the Boulder Free Zone, the Dark Man appears to be evil and scary. However, to Harold and some other characters, I'll get into that in a bit, he's more enticing and tempting. And eventually, I would say, towards the end of the second third of the novel, Harold and Nadine do end up switching sides, but before they do so, they cause a lot of damage to the Free Zone. I'm not going to get into it because it's kind of a spoiler, but we'll move on.
Free. Come on, run on with me. Boom.
In this next shot, Randall Flagg is walking through a prison, and he's saying, "Ollie, Ollie, Oxenfree." And it is a catchphrase or truce term used in children's games such as hide and seek, capture the flag, kick the can, to indicate that players who are hiding can come out into the open without losing the game, that the position of sides has switched, as in which side is on the field or which side is up to bat in baseball or kickball, or alternatively, that the game is entirely over. That's a little excerpt from Wikipedia. I think he's using this phrase, "Ollie Ollie Oxenfree," to call the captives out of hiding in the jail because a lot of the prison staff has died from the virus, and so there's Floyd is left in there. He's hidden away, but he's not technically hiding, and he's just left in the jail for like 2 weeks, and he was in jail for about 2 weeks because everyone else died of the virus. In that time, he nearly went insane, eating rats and part of his cellmate. One interesting detail about the Darkman is before the outbreak of the Captain Trips virus, that's what it's called, he was an activist, oftentimes participating in protests and riots. But here's the kicker. The issues didn't really matter. The issue he was protesting or rioting didn't really matter because he would often switch sides from left to right, liberal and conservative. He was just there to spread chaos, which I think is a really interesting detail in the book. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because he has a pin, and in the book he also has a lot of bumper stickers and tracks as well. He's got like pins and buttons and stickers and tracks and all that fun stuff. But one of the pins winks at Floyd, so that's kind of fun.
In the world that was, they told you it was wrong. What more? Their time is at an end. Our time has begun.
This next shot is very fascinating. We see the Darkman standing on a balcony in Las Vegas. Now, while Mother Abigail and all her followers gather in Boulder, Flagg and all his friends meet up in Las Vegas, where he runs a very strict militaristic society. And if you look closely, there are actually a couple of crucifixions happening down in the corner of the frame. Basically, every violation or every time someone breaks a law is basically punishable by death, usually by crucifixion. Now, I don't know who this guy is in the next shot, but if you look closely towards the top of the frame, the carpet is the same as the carpet in the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. There are a couple of shots of Flagg and his people with his voiceover saying things like, "They told you it was wrong to want more," and "Their time is at an end and our time has just begun." It seems by these lines that his people are maybe poor or disenfranchised, and he seems to be like manipulating them in some way. I don't know. We see a couple shots of the Rat Woman, and this is interesting. I talked about her before in the last breakdown video, but I think that she might be a mix of two characters from the book. The first is obviously the Rat King, and that connection's pretty obvious. But the second one is a little more subtle, and the character is the Trash Can Man. Now, I looked on IMDb, and he isn't in this new series according to that cast list. And so her connection is... there are two reasons why I think that she is this series' version of the Trash Can Man. The Rat King is only in like 2 scenes in the novel. He's not hardly in it. And based on this trailer, there are about 4 or 5 unique scenes with her in it. So her role is obviously bigger than the Rat King in the novel. And towards the end of the story, the Trash Can Man plays a pretty big role. I'm not going to get into it because that's a huge spoiler. But there is a shot in this trailer that indicates to me that maybe this role is given to the Rat Woman. I might be over-speculating. Let's move on.
There's bitter days ahead. Death and terror. The Darkman grows stronger every day. And soon he'll destroy all who stand against him. So the world is now a blank page. And it is there. You must make your stand.
There are a lot of things that happen in the next few seconds of the trailer, so let's just power through it. We see Larry, Stu, Glenn, and Ray trucking on to Vegas for their final confrontation. Now, I said this before, but Ray Bretner is a new character made for the show. She wasn't in the novel or the original miniseries, so it'll be interesting to see what her part in the story is. Now, these next couple shots I don't really understand, so bear with me here. There appears to be some kind of a jail fire. I don't remember that happening at any point in the novel. Is it before the virus breaks out? Is it during the virus breakout? Or is it afterwards? I'm not really sure. This next shot's really fascinating because there are 2 people that seem to be fighting, But the fascinating thing about it is they have numbers on their chest, which indicates maybe this is like some kind of betting situation going on. And in the uncut version of the novel, which is the one that I have, it's like 1,200 pages long. There are other factions of people besides Mother Abigail and the Darkman. Obviously, those are the two biggest ones by far. They're not, the others don't even come close. But there are other groups, and I think that maybe this might be one of those other groups, because I can't see this happening in either of Mother Abigail's groups for obvious reasons, or Randall Flagg. I don't think he would put up with his people trying to kill each other. This next shot is of Larry and Rita underground. It looks like they're in the sewer, so this is probably when they're first leaving New York City. In this next shot, we see a woman screaming, and it looks an awful lot like the Ratwoman. So this might be sort of pre-Ratwoman, before. Let me rephrase this. This is sort of before the virus outbreak, and so she's just kind of crazy. She's not really anything. Now in this next shot, we see. The next two shots in the trailer we see are ones we saw in the previous teaser trailer. Is one of the Darkman floating in his like penthouse, and another one of Nick and Tom in a store, probably running from Julie Lowry. This next shot's really very exciting. If it is what I think it is, it's going to be great. Now, it is very clearly what it is. It's definitely a shot of a dog, but this is where I'm starting to speculation kind of jumps off from that. The reason why I'm so hyped is because I think the dog is named Kojak. Now, towards the beginning of the novel, actually, when we first meet up with Glenn, he has adopted this dog names Kojak. Now, Kojak's real owners died from the virus, and so Glenn just kind of adopts him. But then when Larry, Fran, and Harold meet up with Glenn, he leaves Kojak behind. And, but unbeknownst to Glenn, at the time, Kojak follows him. And there's actually a whole chapter in the book devoted to telling the story of Kojak's journey from New England to Boulder, and it's really fun. It's really exciting. I really hope that at least part of it makes it into the show. I think that would be really interesting. Now, I believe this next shot is our first shot at Nadine Cross. I mentioned this a little earlier, but much like Harold, she starts out with Mother Abigail on her side, but then she switches because she believes that she's intended to be the Darkman's bride. Finally, the trailer ends with a shot of more crosses in Las Vegas, more crucifixions, because that's sort of the Darkman's whole thing. Thank you very much for liking and subscribing. I did one of these before. It was very popular. I also did a book review for the stand, so if you're interested in either of those, they will be on the channel as well. So please consider subscribing and liking this video and sharing it with all your friends. Also, if you're interested, we do have a Facebook group, links in the description below. I mentioned my podcast, but Mike also has a podcast, the Comic Book Fans Podcast, and if you're interested, they talk about all the latest news and commentary surrounding pop culture. Also, you can check out his Instagram page where they do very much a similar thing. Until next time, my name is Luke, and peace out.